Okay, so now this is Unit 4, Chapter 2, Lesson 3, Adding and Subtracting Fractions. So, as I mentioned previously in other lessons, adding and subtracting fractions require a common denominator. The first example we'll look at are fractions that already have the same denominator. So, the steps. Number 1. If you have a mixed number, you will change it to an improper fraction. Then number 2, you will add or subtract the numerators and keep the denominator the same, and then simplify or convert to proper form if it's a mixed number, which is a mixed number. So let's look at example A here. We have 13 over 15 plus 8 over 15. These are not mixed numbers. They already have the same denominator. Their denominator is 15. So all we have to do is add the numerators, 13 plus 8, which gives us 21, and keep the denominator over 15. Now, 21 over 15 can reduce. So we use what we know about simplifying fractions. We break both the numerator and denominator into its prime factors. So 21 breaks into 3 times 7 and 15 3 times 5. Notice that these 3's are the common factors. So we cross those out and we're left with a reduced fraction of 7 over 5. Now, our answer is simplified, however, it is an improper fraction. We need to convert it into a mixed number. So, we can think of it visually. If the whole is 5, that means I have 5 out of 5. And if I have 2 more pieces, which makes 7, notice how one whole, 5 out of 5, and I'm left with 2 over 5. So I know it will simplify to 1 2/5. The other way is to simply divide, use lone division. So I can do 7 divided by 5. 5 goes into 7 one time. And when I subtract, 7 take away 5 leaves me with 2, a remainder of 2. In order to create the mixed number, we take the remainder over the denominator, 1 2/5. Now let's take a look at example B. In example B, we have mixed numbers. So the first step is to then change these into improper fractions. So remember, in order to change to an improper fraction, we take the denominator times the whole. So 8 times 9 plus 7, which is 79, and we put it over the denominator of 8. The next one, 8 times 2, which is 16, plus 3, which is 19, over the denominator of 8. Now I can subtract the numerators. 79 minus 19 gives me 60. Keep the denominator of 8. Next, we need to simplify. 60 breaks down into 6 times 10. And we know 6 is 2 times 3 and 10 is 2 times 5. 8 breaks down into 2 times 2 times 2. Here we cross out the common factors. On the top, we're left with 3 times 5, which is 15, and on the bottom, we're left with 2. 15 over 2 is simplified. However, we need to convert it into a mixed number because it's an improper fraction. So once again, you can use lone division or you can visually think of it. I'll do the lone division. We know 2 goes into 15 7 times, which gives us 14. And we subtract that and we have a remainder of 1. So we put that over the denominator of 2. Now you will try the bottom 4. Then report to your teacher and check in to see if your answers are correct when she calls you back. Let's scroll down. The next part we have was adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So what if the denominators are not the same? We have to find the least common denominator. We do this by listing multiples of both denominators and circling the least common denominator or multiple. Number 2, we'll rewrite the fractions using the least common denominator. So this is a form of raising it to higher terms, if you remember, when we create an equivalent fraction. Something like if the common denominator, or let's say the common denominator was 4. Well, I know to make 2 4, I would have to multiply by 2, which means I'll multiply both the top and bottom by that same number, creating the equivalent fraction of 2 fourths. So that was a past lesson that we've learned. After I get a common denominator, then we're going to either add or subtract the fractions and simplify our solution. So now let's think here. We have, I'm going to scroll down, the first example, 1/8 plus 5/6. The denominators are 8 and 6. So the first step, I recognize that they are not the same denominator. These are different. So I need to list the multiples of both denominators. For 6, 6 times 1 is 6, times 2 is 12, 3 is 18, 4 is 24, and 6 times 5 is 30. For 8, 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, 8 times 4 is 32, and really I can stop because I now see a common denominator or a common multiple. So now my goal is to change both my fractions so that they have a denominator of 24. So let's start with the 1/8. I want to change 1/8 so that it has a denominator of 24. I have to think 8 times what will change that to 24? Well, 8 times 3. And if you make your chart will show you what to multiply by. If I multiply the bottom by 3, I have to do the same to my numerator in order to create an equivalent fraction. So 3/24 is the new fraction. Now let's look at B, 5/6. Well, 6 times 4 gives me 24 for the denominator, so I multiply the numerator by 4 and I get 20/4. Now notice 1/8 has changed to 3/24, 5/6 to 20/24. Now both fractions have the same denominator. Now I can add them. So 3/24 plus 20/24 is 23/24. My solution is already in simplest form, so it will not reduce. So as we move down, you have 2 examples to do on your own. Be sure to check in with your teacher to make sure that your solution is correct when she calls you back. Also pay attention to your classwork. You have to do page 78, exercise B, numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8. So those are the evens. Then page 81, exercise A, 2, 4, 6, 8, evens again. There's also a section for some extra online practice, which will provide you with immediate feedback. And throughout the lesson, don't forget that there are videos that you can watch that are very helpful in teaching you how to add and subtract fractions. This is the completion of Unit 4, Chapter 2, Lesson 3, Adding and Subtracting Fractions.